Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we talk with martial arts practitioners about their histories and the influence that their practice of martial arts has on their lives. You are listening to the free version of this podcast, which is abbreviated. Help support this program by considering to subscribe to us on Patreon, where you will get 4 full-length podcasts each month, 1 week before the YouTube release date. The cost is that of about 1 coffee shop coffee per month. Go to www.patreon.com/malmag to subscribe. That is www.patreon.com/malmag. If you would like to purchase single full-length episodes of the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, visit our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com, and that is malmag.gumroad.com. This week, I sit down at the Inosanto Academy with Natasha Lepore. She is a scientist working on some exciting things, and we talk about her history in the martial arts as well as brain injuries and such. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I have, I think, the third person in my Canadian series. I think you're the third person in a row here I've interviewed who is from Canada, so I'm just going to call it part of my Canada series.
Excellent.
Anyway, this is Natasha Lepore, if I can say it even remotely correctly. Natasha is originally from Canada, as I'm kind of giving it away here, but I know her from the Inosanto Academy of Martial Arts, and she's one of these folks that I call unusual in a good way, in that she is one of our Shooto people. So she takes the Shooto class here, as well as JKD and many other things. But Shooto is kind of an unusual, smaller group, and it's kind of an intense art. So when you meet her and you think Shooto, she's very unassuming, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You're a very just like kind of endearing person in your appearance, and one would never believe that you would be such a badass that could twist them into a pretzel.
Thank you.
Anyway, so I thought she'd be a fantastic person to learn a little something about. So Natasha, welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for interviewing me.
Excellent. She's also another, I think the last Canadian I interviewed was Annie, and she's PhD, very smart person. The same thing here. I think I always joke with you being a rocket scientist, because they always say, oh, it's a rocket scientist is I think the judge on being smart, but you said scientist, but not quite on rockets.
Yeah, no, not quite rockets. Do you want me to give a little bit about my background? Yeah, so I studied physics. I did my undergrad in math physics, then I went to Cambridge to do a master's in applied math, and then did a PhD at Harvard in theoretical physics and quantum chaos, and then switched eventually to, after my PhD.
Was that boring? I hope that wasn't too boring. Why you switched?
Oh, no, I wanted to do something that was a little more immediately applicable to helping people.
Okay.
And so I ended up in, physics is great, but it's more of a long-term sort of thing, what I was doing, and whereas now I work on brain MRI, and more on the medical side of things. I do research on developing software to analyze brain MRI, especially in children.
Wow. Well, that's fascinating. That's great. Hence our earlier conversation. That's fantastic. I really didn't know that end of it. I just remember we've had some very amazing conversations about different things at dinners at the Eveleys before.
Oh, yes.
And so you have a very unique, profession, compared to a lot of people. So how did you get into, so that's a very brainy side. How did you get into the physical side, martial arts?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but I think I always wanted to do martial arts. Even when I was a kid, it was always, and I always thought, well, I'm not going to be really good at it, and so I sort of self-defeated myself into not trying, and then at some point when I was I think in grad school at some point, I just finally decided to try, and I started with Aikido. Did Aikido for 7 years, And then my sensei passed away, and then I also moved here to LA. And I tried doing Aikido in LA, but I just couldn't try a new style because I was so attached to my previous sensei, and he passed away, and it felt like betraying him, even though, I mean, learning any style is great, but I just couldn't stay with Aikido. And so then I looked around, I searched through every school in the LA area, found the Inosanto Academy, and I've been here since 2006, I think.
Wow. Wow, okay, so you actually been here almost as long as I have. I didn't realize
really?
that. Yeah,
didn't
I
know
came
that.
around 2004, but I mean, I've been doing Kali and Jaikidi for about 10 years before that, and then karate and kickboxing for 10 years before that. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize you'd quite been here that long.
Oh yeah, I felt
But
like,
I do, I've remembered you here for a long time, so that doesn't surprise me.
yeah.
So the stuff we do here is, I want to say, quite different than Aikido, especially the things that you've chosen. Now there's crossover, and we can get into that sort of thing, but from the initial look-see at something, you would definitely say what we're doing here is not Aikido.
No.
So what attracted you to stay here or pick this place and what you're doing here?
Well, I mean, I think obviously this place is amazing. There's so many different styles. I like trying. I like being able to see different aspects of martial arts, and that's one of the great things here. There's so many different classes one can take. Everyone is amazing. Like, there's so many good instructors. I feel like as someone who doesn't do martial arts for a living, I feel like it's easier here to, I guess, be able to trust instructors. I'm going to try to say this like I know I can trust people here to be giving me good instruction. Like whereas.
Oh yeah, okay.
So if that makes sense, like if I went somewhere else and I felt like I had to research more of what people were saying, it would maybe feel like more work. I'm not sure if I'm making clear, but here I feel like we know this stuff works, and it's nice to be able to
the track
trust.
record's pretty good.
Yeah,
we can say that, especially with I guess the reach. It's interesting how something like Guru Inosanto stuff reaches from the absolute staged, i.e. movies, right? There were 1 degree of separation, it seems, from everybody that's in the stunt industry, and then to the hyper real, because he's trained and his students have trained law enforcement, military, special ops, this sort of stuff. So from the guys who are absolutely using it in a hyper real situation to the guys who are using it in an absolutely staged thing, and then everything in between. So it must be okay.
yeah, exactly. It's amazing, and I like the history here also. It's really cool to learn about the history of martial arts, and that doesn't always, there's not always this breadth of history necessarily in all schools, because some people are, coming at it from a little bit less of this, all the experience that's here, and so. I think those are the reasons why I stayed in this particular school, and the people are, really cool also.
Well, let's go back a little bit. I mean, because you started in grad school, which is actually, there's no bad time to start, but people start at different times, and it's always interesting to see. I look at you and I look at your skill level, and I would have never assumed you started that late. Actually, I would have thought you'd been doing this since you were a kid.
Oh, thank you.
And so so that's actually. A very interesting fact for me to learn there. So in grad school, you're looking for some martial art. What attracted you to Aikido? Why did you pick that?
I didn't know what I was doing at that time, and I had a boyfriend who had done a bunch of different martial arts, and so I just asked him what he thought would be the best for me, and he said, "Oh yeah, for sure Aikido. Try Aikido. You'll like it." And I did, and I loved it. I really loved it for a while. That I was. Doing Aikido every day, like 7 days a week, all the time, going to Aikido camp in the summer, so he was right.
So what about Aikido made you really love it like that?
A lot of different things. So I think one of the things I really like about martial arts is it's like being a kid again. It's like, you know, you don't have that kind of interaction as an adult with, like, on the street. Like, you wouldn't go on the street and throw someone. That might not work.
Well, I mean, you could, but you go to jail.
Yeah, right. But you know, you do that as a kid, and like, it's like being a kid again in a, you know, as an adult, and that's really nice to be able to have that kind of interaction with people. I like the acrobatic side of martial arts. I think that's also why I really like Shooto, is because there's a lot of like rolling and throwing and all that, and I really like that aspect of it. It's like gymnastics, but where you throw people, and that's
Yeah.
fun.
Well, Shooto is incredibly physical. It's one of those classes I look at here and go, ooh, you know, the art I can do, the warm-up's the thing I have the trouble with, all the bendy stuff with previous back issues for me. But you know, the rest of it's incredibly physical. It's an amazing art. And it's almost, I almost want to say, okay, it's Japanese like Aikido, but I almost would think, you know, Aikido is sort of this peace and harmony, and Shooto, I kind of don't think of peace and harmony. I think of it as break you, twist you in half.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite. Yeah. Yeah, but it has that same. It has all the acrobatic side of Aikido. It has. I really like the Japanese, just sort of the formal Japanese stuff around it also. I think, I mean, martial arts are a very, I mean, it's a dangerous sport and a dangerous, you know, thing to do. And I think having all of that formalism around it sort of forces people to stop and think that, you know, what they're doing, and sort of enforces a certain discipline to make sure that people are more respectful towards each other. And so I really like that, and also when I started, you know, Sensei Yuri was around.
Yes.
And he was, I mean, he was so amazing.
And that's for those of you who don't know listening, that's Yuri Nakamura, who was a staple here at the Inosanto Academy for many years, and you know, many might know him as a Jeet Kune Do instructor, which he probably was and still is one of the most knowledgeable ones on the planet. He's just in Japan now as opposed to here at the United States at the Inosanto Academy. But he is the guy who brought Shooto to the United States. And it's, you know, people kind of know about it, I think, but it's rare. It's like you won't really find a lot of places that are teaching it. So here at the Academy is one of the few places, and we had the guy, you know, here for quite a while.
Yeah, he was incredible. I mean, you just watch him do Shooto or any martial art, and it just made me happy just to watch him, like, watch how he was, you know, watch him train, watch him, you know, and he was also such an amazing instructor. Like,
yes,
he was so good with all the students. And you never lost patience, which I think was a very impressive skill, because sometimes I assume he was not always proud of us.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you think, you know, he was a very precise guy. So it's, you know, he embodies, you know, when I think Japanese and a Japanese approach, he embodies that, and he's very precise. He's very exact. He certainly practices to. I guess what we would potentially call perfection, or as close to it. That's always a word that I'm very careful about, because I think of it more conceptually as I do as a fact. But I think if someone embodied it, it would be him.
Yeah, I think
sure.
He was as close to it as any human can get, yeah.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, you could imagine when you have that self-discipline, and yeah, the rest of us bumbling fools who are coming in here trying to attempt this, you know, thing that he's doing. But no, he certainly was always very kind to us in that regard. And we're only talking about him in past tense in the fact that he's not present here at this academy now. He still very much is alive and in Japan, and he still teaches, I believe, there.
He does, yeah.
You can actually go see him and train in Jeikiri or Shooto, and he's happy to do that. He just had a medical issue that would not allow him to travel, and he happened to be, fortunately for him, home in Japan at the time, around a very good facility. So It worked out, but he's still with us, and you can still train with him. We just miss him here at the academy, certainly.
Yeah, we miss him a lot. Yeah.
Oh, man. So how do you sort of reconcile that, kind of what I was talking about, that sort of Aikido with Shooto?
I, you know, I think they're just different aspects of martial arts, and I think they're all, I mean, important aspects. I mean, Aikido is really nice, but it also has its own philosophy of not engaging, until someone attacks you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to learn the other aspects also, right? You want to learn to attack, to learn to defend, and I think that Shooto has this other aspect, and I really enjoy learning all of that also, and the whole mixed martial art side of things, and not just the defensive side from Aikido.
Wow. So, again, like I kind of said earlier, Shooto in this academy tends to be a little bit smaller of a group, and I think it's just there's an intensity to it that for someone who's a hardcore martial artist, that's certainly something they would be attracted to, and they're gonna jump in there. The average person may go, "Woo, that's a bit much," and we wax and wane, and it looks like we're starting to get more. And part of that's a product of the season and coming out of COVID and all that kind of good stuff too. But it looks like the program's starting to grow again, which is always something I'm happy to see, and would love to help promote that a bit more, because we do have Harlan Hugh teaching as the main teacher in that now here, and he's phenomenal. Closing in on his black belt in jiu-jitsu, I can see.
Yeah.
So he's a very well experienced grappler, and the person that Sifu Yori, or Sensei Yori, we should say, in the respect of a Japanese art, put the trust in his hand to continue it here, and also an incredibly smart guy.
Yes.
That's why I think it's kind of interesting. I'm like, the class that I would assume you get dropped on your head a lot seems to have the smartest people in it.
I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of smart people in a lot of the classes here, but I think with Shooto, like, it's such a complex art that I think it attracts also maybe the type of people who are interested in having to think about what they're doing a lot. So at least that's an element of it for me, certainly. Like, every class I am learning something new, and I have to think all the time to figure out how to do each technique, and that maybe attracts a certain type of people.
Certainly, yeah, and that's an interesting thing to hear, because you are one of our senior Shooto people, so you've been in it quite a while. Maybe, I think since it's such a rare art, maybe people probably don't even understand what it is. Maybe, and I think you'd be better to describe it than me.
Oh, wow. I'm not usually very good at defining things. How do you... Okay, I have to think about this question. Can we get back to it?
Yeah, no problem.
I know it shouldn't be a trick question, but yeah. Let me think about it a little bit. Yeah, ask the next question. I'll answer this one right after.
Okay, let's see. Where do I want to go from there then?
I mean, I guess I can give like a one-line summary. It's like a modern Japanese mixed martial art that involves like striking, throwing, grappling, a bit of everything basically, and it's a sport, so it's a lot of the techniques are based on sports rather than street fighting,
but it would work quite well street-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys can, check it out on YouTube. It's SHOOTO, and what you will see is that it looks like UFC. Now, if you go back and you look at early UFC, which was very distinct styles versus each other, no weight class, bare knuckle thing. Look at when Shooto was first done in the United States, amateur bouts, and then look at when UFC was. Shooto was here first. And UFC ends up evolving into this thing that looks more like Shooto does now. So you've got a kickboxing stand-up, I believe. So the founder was Satoru Sayama, if I remember correctly, who was known as the Tiger Mask in Japanese wrestling circles. and I believe he wanted to create something that was not choreographed, something that was real. So they ended up taking essentially a Muay Thai stand-up base, and then their wrestling base was kind of like the old style wrestlers. So it was catch wrestling, hook wrestling, and I'm guessing there's obviously got to be some jiu-jitsu and things like that in there as well.
There's a bit of everything, yeah.
Yeah, so they got a bit of a mix, and the sambo, because Shooto, they really like to get into the leg locks and the foot locks and that sort of thing. And I think there's a bit more, as I look at it, a bit more throwing than you would see kind of in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah, a lot more throwing than Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I don't know, like when you ask that question, like the one thing that keeps coming to my mind, because it's been sort of a theme of a lot of classes, is like recently it's like, well, Shooto is pain. But that's maybe not what we want to put in the thing.
Well, in a smiley sort of way. I mean,
with a lot of smiley.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a light calorie class. Let's put it that way. It's not a light calorie art, but it also shouldn't discourage a person, especially if you come here. I mean, the group's going to take care of you. That I don't think you have to worry about injury or anything like that.
No.
But it's certainly not a Tai Chi class. We can put it that way. It's these guys get down, they get sweaty. You hit stuff, you wrestle with each other. You guys pretty much, and I'm usually teaching a private lesson as the class is going on, but I teach the class afterwards. So I come down and they're in the middle of, finishing up some wrestling on the mat and stuff, and they look thoroughly warmed up. I'm going to put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's a good workout.
So a good question for you, because grappling classes, I would say in general, and Shooto definitely. Jiu-Jitsu is mixing up a little bit more, but it's predominantly a male class. Yeah. So how do you, as a female, how are you? Obviously, you're great in it because you're still here, and it's a situation that's fine with you. But I mean, do you? I don't know. I guess I should ask you to comment on that.
Yeah, no, and thank you for asking that, because I think it's an important question. It took me a really long time to be okay with it. Actually, it wasn't that easy.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it took. So when I started, I mean, I always loved Shooto, but when I started, I was the only woman in the class. For years, and so I would come to it, like I would start I would start doing Shooto for a little bit, then I would stop, and then I sort of felt like maybe I shouldn't be in the class, and so I'd start, and then I take a break, and so on. And it's hard also because this is not my main job. So if I wanted to be a professional martial artist, I think I'd have a different attitude to it. I think it would have been easier, but because I do this as my pastime, I mean, so it becomes even more challenging, because I'm not like the top person in Shooto in the world. Like in that case, it would feel a little bit easier to be going against the trend of and but since I'm just like a normal person coming here, so but then at some point, I guess we ended up having a more cohesive group in the class for a little while, and that really helped a lot. Like I started hanging out with some of the people in the class, like Harlan and Scott and the group we had at the time. There was a few other people who aren't here anymore, but and it really helped to start like having actual people that were like doing Shooto with me and not feel isolated. So that then ever since then I've been coming regularly and not feeling that pressure.
Wow. Yeah, trust. And this concludes the abbreviated version of the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. Please click the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell. Also consider subscribing to the full-length podcast at www.patreon.com/malmag, or purchasing individual full-length episodes at malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Natasha Lepore. Next week I go to Calgary again, and I speak with a phenomenal martial artist named Jay Cooper. Check out the Malmag store at www.martialartslifestylemagazine.com and click on the Store tab. There, you will find a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabi Krabong, as well as Timmy B's and Dos Manos t-shirts. Many more products coming soon. Also click on our Courses tab to purchase online courses, right now featuring a course in the Dos Manos stick of FMA. More courses to come. This show is produced by Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine. Visit us at www.martialartslifestylemagazine.com and enjoy the free version of our online magazine with articles, a recommended schools page, and a worldwide events calendar. Music by Jackal Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.